Introduces the break-even chart. So this is break-even is the point where we are not making a profit, but we're not making a loss. Okay, so from the previous video, we focused on the total cost line. Okay, so that total cost line, it starts at the origin. Okay, so this on the axis. Okay, we have this point here, which would be our fixed costs in amount. And it goes up. That slope that it increases by, that slope is the variable cost per unit. So that's the total cost line, and we produced that in the first video. When you look at Introduction to Costing 1, that's we produced that. Now, sales revenue, this is the amount of money we get for selling the goods that we make. So sales revenue, if we make and sell no goods, we earn no money. So it starts at the origin and it goes up, and the slope of that line is basically the sales price per unit. And in Costing 2, I showed you how we'd work out the formula for that, but I'm trying to turn this into a diagram. So now, as we increase and sell more and more and more goods, eventually we get to a stage where our total costs match our sales revenue. That means our costs match the money that's coming in, and that's called our break-even point. So I've marked that there. So that's where those two lines meet. Okay. Now, following down, we have break-even point in quantity. So that's the amount of units that we would need to sell. If we make and sell this particular amount of units, we will not make a profit, not make a loss. If we take into our till this amount of money, then we won't make a profit or loss. That's the break even in money terms. That's the break even in quantity terms. So if we end up down here somewhere, okay, if we sell anything on the lower end of the axis, we'll end up making a loss. If we can go higher in the break-even point, up here somewhere, we'll end up making a profit. Why is this a profit? Because the sales revenue line, okay, if we look at the sales revenue line here, it is higher than the cost line, so the revenue is more than the cost, so we have a profit. Down here the cost is higher than the revenue line, so that means we're making a loss. Now, we have a line here, a vertical line. This is our current production. So if we're making this amount of goods, and this here is our break-even point, well, the difference between the two of them is called our margin of safety. So that's the cushion that we have, like the safety margin that we have before we start heading into a loss-making situation. So we are producing and aiming to sell this amount of goods, and we know that our break-even point is this. So if we underachieve our target of whatever our current production is, if we don't manage to sell all of our current production, how much of a cushion do we have before we start heading into a loss-making situation? Now, if this margin of safety is relatively narrow, so for example, if we have to produce 10,000 and our break-even point was, for example, 9,000, we only have a very small cushion before we start heading into a loss-making situation. So we might decide not to make that good if we felt that we could only produce and sell 10,000 of them, bearing in mind the costs that are involved. If we have a wider margin of safety, then we'd feel a bit more comfortable about that. Remember, the margin of safety is based on what we are planning to, our current production is what we are planning to produce and sell. Obviously, markets may change, you know, a pandemic may come along, so we may underachieve our target, but that is our target.